They are into the water, a clean start. A couple in the middle got a little bit of a head start on the others.
Yeah, I don't know who that was.
Could be Tommy Zafiris.
Yeah, right in the middle, whoever that was. They had a absolutely, not just the starters, running in the water and some great dolphin diving and getting out fast. There's Polyansky, you can see there on the left or to his right, whoever the leader is.
I think it is Zafiris. He doesn't have the... He's just brand new to Super League. He doesn't have the
flags. Yeah, so that's Polyansky there, who's coming up right up on him, and yeah, this field has only got only the 10 guys in it, so it's less. So the swim, in theory, should be actually a lot less rough, and the guys should be able to get on and swim. But that said, it is the quickest 10 guys, so they're all pretty close. Polyansky getting.
Polyansky, yeah, it is Zafiris on the back. Polyansky. And I saw Johnny on the right. He didn't get as good a start as I think he was hoping. On the far side, Vincent Louis, who got a great start and can make up for any issues he does have moving up there on the right of screen as they come around this second buoy. But Polyansky's been roaring out the blocks on these beach starts. I think he prefers this in the pontoon. He tends to get beaten up a little bit, but he's led most of the swims over the weekend. And that's sort of all we've really seen of him after the swims. He tends to drift backwards on this more technical bike course, but he really likes these beach run starts.
He did very well in the heat to position himself in a group of 4 along with Tommy Zafiris and got dragged away from the pack with Martin Van Riel and Johnny Brownlee in that first of the 2 heats. So tactically he was good, and that for Zafiris and Polyansky was based on a great swim, and they managed to just get taken away on the bike, and that was the end of it.
Well, they knew with Johnny and Martin both in that first heat, they were the tickets to the final. They just had to mark those men, and they did that very comfortably. And I think that bike ride, I guess, is going to be a very, very different bike ride now. This is the final. Those boys were able to control that in that first loop, set up that group of 4, and they weren't chasing those 6 through. There was no way that first heat was going to be the fastest.
Henry Schumann isn't anywhere near the front.
Really is.
He's actually quite far back. It's definitely the furthest. We see Richard Murray kind of swimming last man there, and just in front of him in the blue jersey is Henry Schumann, which isn't the position we'd expect to see, and so maybe he isn't feeling too good today, and he has actually been a bit unwell, but we'll see now over this next 5 minutes, I guess.
Polyansky and Zafiris lead us out of the water ahead of Martin Van Riel.
Great swim from him.
Vincent Louis, Ben Canute, Jonathan Brownlee, and they go back into the water again. Both Zafiris and Polyansky having a look behind them and wondering where Henry Schumann is, I think. And he said he was feeling better this morning. I saw him at breakfast. He wasn't feeling too good yesterday, and he dominated proceedings. So maybe he needs to feel sick more often.
Henry went left off that turn and tried to get some clear water. He's going to try and move up here. I think this boat gets awfully close as they try and get the shots we're seeing here, and he needs to move up a little. I don't think he'd like to be this far back. He's not.
Well, we haven't seen him chase yet, have we? He's basically been out the swim at the front, or pretty much, and he's been able to control his race and go out there and do what he needs to do. And now put in this position with guys in his way going out onto the bike and having to make up a bit of time potentially, that's a different story. I mean, Polyansky's moving back with Zafiris is now moving to the front. Yeah, Polyansky, he does seem to fly off these beach start and have a great first 200 metres, and then he's the next few hundred metres don't seem to be as good for him. But these front kind of 8 guys here, there's absolutely nothing between them. They're really close. I don't actually think they're swimming that quick either. They're quite bunched. It doesn't look like they're really pushing it here. I don't think it would be a bit more strung out if they were.
They're not moving quick, but there's 2 guys off the back that seem to be distant. So I was looking to see if that was Richard Murray. I know it's Hayden Wild.
One of them's Richard Murray.
But yeah, he is very, very quick through transition, but he leaves himself a lot to do, and that tends to catch up with you in that latter stages of this race.
Vincent Louis moving through here, always where he needs to be, isn't he, pretty much? I think he could probably swim to the front here if he needed to, but he's just biding his time, doing what he needs to do. As he moved back there, Henry moved up a bit to the right, and Johnny to the left of that group at the back. But yeah, if we go back there, I think if we think that's Wild, there's Murray off the back effectively.
Yeah, really.
He's probably still just okay, like you say. He's great transition. He's good at these little runs out the swim, and great at getting on his bike in that first kind of 500 metres. So I don't think he's in trouble, but it might just show things are taking its toll maybe a bit more than you'd expect.
Tommy Zafiris leads a world-class field out of the water. Leo Berger there, little stumble for Hayden Wild. He's a bit injured. He had a bit of trouble with an accident in transition in the heat, and there was a fair bit of blood coming out of his knee, which was already injured.
I think Martin Van Riel will be very, very happy with that swim. He's very, very strong on this climb. We saw in the heats, he really goes to the front. He applied the pressure and broke the group up. He's such a good swim biker, and he showed his run form over these shorter distances is strong as well.
Great transition from Vincent Louis, who comes out behind Zafiris, and Murray needs a very, very quick one.
And he did it.
And he's come out ahead of Hayden Wild.
Hayden Wild hasn't done his helmet up there. That's technically a violation to just choose to act on it, but it probably just shows that he's under a bit more stress than maybe he would like to be here. And yeah, this is Ben Canute, I think, taking it on up this first hill. Vincent Louis chasing him hard, and Martin Van Riel on his wheel as well. I think you're right, he'll be really happy with that swim. He's a good, solid swimmer, but not spectacular, so for him to come out of the water, you know, in third or fourth, I think is a great result for him. And you can see Johnny there in fourth, chasing hard to make it onto the wheel. Richard Murray's moved up, and Schumann is going back through the field. This will be key for Schumann. You know, if you're not absolutely on your top form here, just puts you in the red a bit earlier than you'd like to be, and we'll see if over these next 5 minutes can he hold in or not. And Hayden Wild is off the back there. Yeah,
it was Hayden Wild who was our last qualifier on by the fastest time with Leo Bergier, so he needs to do some work. He needs to work that climb. But you know one thing, when Ben Canute's in the race, you saw him in the heats, he is aggressive as can be on this bike ride. He attacks the corners. Every single time he hit the bottom of that hill, he launches to the front. He'll keep this pace as hard as he possibly can.
Vincent being aggressive here. I mean, I think he's probably sniffed that Henry's off the back and struggling, and he's been aggressive as we've seen. And I think you know, you can see Canute and Johnny there. You know, these guys are pushing hard to go with it, and Zafir is just on the back of this group of 5.
We should update you right now on why it's important that Henry Schoeman is back there. There's a maximum of 50 points on offer for the round, and the round win. Schoeman took 25 yesterday, Vincent Louis 21, Johnny Brownlee 18, Hayden Wild 16, Martin Van Riel 14. There's another 25 and those numbers as well on offer for today, and the maximum number of points, whoever has the most comes in with the round win and the championship points moving forward into Singapore. So if Vincent Louis can put a few people between himself and Henry Schoeman, he will come up with another round win, and he's taken 2 already.
He's driving the pace.
Yeah, he's really driving the pace here. You can see the gaps.
The problem with Henry Schoeman and Richard Murray back there is they're behind Igor Polyansky, who does tend to struggle on this climb, and that takes one pot rider out of the equation. It makes the gap even bigger, and someone has to make the move to get across. And when that pace is fast up front, that stings the legs.
Yeah, and I think there's, you know, even if Henry was feeling on top form here, this isn't a position he's been in. You know, he's been at the front, he's been controlling the pace, he's been able to take the corners, his own lines at his own pace, and that's a completely different thing. You know, even if actually you're lapping at exactly the same speed, or, you know, the time, I guess, you know, doing it in the group can be so much harder, because you're having to brake into corners, accelerate out, you're having to chop and change the pedalling you're doing. So even that could just be making him a lot more uncomfortable. But you can see they've gone harder. You know, they're taking the time to catch the breast over the kind of crest of that hill, and it's actually Richard Murray who's been
struggling.
Yeah, we haven't really seen Richard Murray being distance on a bike leg before in Super League.
Well, he hasn't been ridden off a pack, which is exactly what happened then. Igor Polyansky, as we said, lost it on that climb. He got held up behind him, and boom, suddenly you're 5 bike lengths off the back. And Vincent Louis has been gassing this Winston Church Hill, we call it.
Explain that. There's a church at the top of the hill.
Church at the top.
We called it Church Hill. Now it's the Winston Church Hill.
Wow,
look it up.
Yeah.
Wikipedia it if you don't know what we're talking about.
I hope no one got paid to come up with that.
I've put my invoice in and hasn't been paid yet.
Yeah, Vincent has been aggressive here, you can see, and he's pushing the pace. Henry's moved up a bit there past Tommy Zafir, so maybe he's just been tactical. He might not be feeling his best, but he's just going, actually conserve here. You know, what can I do to get round and get round as efficiently as possible, which is the clever thing to do. And yeah, that's kind of, I've always thought, the mark of a really great athlete. What can they do on a bad day? And can they pull a performance out on a bad day? And, you know, physically you might not have it, but what can you do kind of mentally and tactically to get through those days where it's not really in your favour?
Johnny's been marking Vincent this whole ride, which I think is a clever move. One thing about Vincent and one thing about this course is it doesn't really hurt you as much to be on the front of this bike. It's just one of those courses, very, very difficult. You're not really getting a draft advantage up this climb. They tend to move up there, and the technicality of this right-hander at the bottom means there's only about 150 metres where you're actually punching the wind.
Yeah, and I think there's that bit, there's probably the one bit of recovery you get as you roll out through transition into the bottom of the hill, and it is an advantage to be in the pack, but apart from that, there isn't really much of an advantage. And you kind of saw all the time, it doesn't really matter who's there, who's in third, fourth, kind of fifth position, the gap goes always. And you're just a little bit less confident in one of the 3 or 4 people in front of you. You're a bit more careful. You lose a few meters around that corner, and all of a sudden, that gap goes out and everything gets harder. That said, they've slowed up that hill. You know, look, Murray's back on the back there and actually come round someone, which I think is probably Zafir. The 2 guys behind have nearly got back into contact. So I think they definitely used that chance there to take a bit of a breather. It looked like Van Riel attacked early doors, but didn't really move the pace on there, maybe, or it was a tactic for him to slow it down, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, there was a definite slowing in pace.
It was on lap 3 that he attacked in the heat and really distanced it, but they slowed up in lap 2, and it was Van Riel who went to the front in the heats with Johnny and did some real damage. Much different looking group of athletes in that heat than we're seeing right now, but he likes to be on the front, I think, Martin, and
he does. He's a good bike rider as well, technically really good, and tactically, you actually see him attack and take the race on and make it interesting, and yeah, I guess that's what he's doing here. But yeah, the guys who you'd expect, with Vincent there, Johnny, Leo Berger, the guys who would know to worry about him are keeping close order this, and that shows that they are concerned. They know he can cause damage if he wants to, and they want to be close to it. These splits happening again. Who's that back? So you've got Berger to Henry Schumann to Ben Canute, who's just let the wheel go a bit there and is having to ride so hard to get himself back on.
And Safari's on the back.
Yeah, Richard Murray just on Canute's wheel. Canute is a good wheel, he doesn't tend to take any risks or corner aggressively. He doesn't really sprint out corners, so if you want a wheel to control yourself back up, he's a great wheel to be on, and Richard Murray will know that better than anyone, I would have thought.
Well, he's gone straight to the front. He's moved from position 6 at the base of that climb straight to the front, and Johnny moves around him. Hayden Wild really needs to be aggressive on this climb. We saw him in the heat have a terrible swim. He used his climb and his lightweight to get across to the group, and as it slows up, he can tack himself on the back and get a little breather before the run.
This climb, rather than actually really splitting the group a lot of the time, it effectively neutralises it, because they roll into the bottom of it and it bunches up, and then they all realise it's bunched up and they look at each other, and at that point it goes, well, the pace is so slow here. For me to push it on attack, I have to put a massive amount of power down. And so we've not actually seen a lot of distancing, unless they're riding hard in the 2 or 3s like we've seen maybe a bit more in the women's racing. In the men's racing, it's actually been more neutralising than this much shorter climb that we're seeing now.
Yeah.
Vincent Louis is your current race leader and your current championship leader. Behind him, Jonathan Brownlee of Great Britain, Ben Canute of the USA, Martin Van Riel, the Belgian, just 21 years old, on debut in Super League and making a big splash. Took a stage win yesterday from Leo Berger, who's also figuring in our championship standings. Henry Schumann, who had the win yesterday, is all the way back in 7th position, and he'll need to find a way around and maybe rely on a better swim in the second part of this race. This is the first bike leg. We're going to hit the run soon, and then it's another swim bike run before we arrive at our sprint enduro winner. Richard Murray is still tagging onto the back of this one. Tommy Zafiris is just seeing the rubber band stretch a little bit, and behind them Hayden Wild's doing everything he can and leaving Igor Polyansky behind as they come into transition. Let's see how this one plays out.
Hayden Wild has had to ride hard there on his own. He just saw himself getting away from Polyansky to move up through the field, and he's done a good job, but yeah, he's on the back foot now, isn't he? It's going to be a big call from Johnny.
Johnny had a great transition.
First time for everything.
Of Henry Schumann, and Richard Murray again showing his class in transition.
Can we hear that? Can we make sure we heard that first time?
Say that
for
again
everything
for me, Alan.
First down of transition, Johnny Brownlee.
It's a barbed compliment, obviously.
Yeah.
Take with one hand, give with one hand and take with the other.
Absolute backhanded compliment, that one.
He looks very comfortable today, Johnny. We called that in the heats. He seemed to be running more on his toes today. He was strong yesterday. I think the short shoot took him out of the equation yesterday, and
but now he has a short shooting, and he can take it on this run after they head up the Winston Churchill, which I'm still enjoying saying. The short shoot is at the back end of the run. He can take it on the first or second lap of this run, or the first or second lap of the next run, but he can only take it once. Vincent Louis in second position also has one by virtue of winning the other heat, and Henry Schumann has moved into behind Vincent Louis. There's your 1-2 in the championship, and they are vying for a round win and maximum championship points at the end of the day's racing.
So again, at the end of this leg, we're diving in to do a swim, obviously. So, the guys who are the good swimmers, Vincent Louis and Henry Schumann, know they've got that in the locker. They know they can give Johnny 5 seconds, and they're probably going to get that in the early parts of the swimming, catching up no problem. The guys like Martin Van Riel, not so much. Ben Canute, he's going to swim okay. But Richard Murray especially, he knows he needs to be close to those guys going into the swim. If a gap opens up, if that 1 metre gap opens up, he knows it's going to be a big effort for him to close it, and he does not want to let that happen.
With it only being a 200-metre opening lap in the first swim, Richard Murray really needs to move up and enter the water first and have everyone else swim around him to get through that first lap and stay close. I think he's a confidence athlete. If he can get through this next swim without in contact, you could give him half a sniff at winning this race.
So neither of our two short shooters decide to take the short shoot. There it is in the middle of your screen, that little shortcut around the inflatable there. Both Brownlee and Vincent Louis decide to keep it in the back pocket as we expected they would. But a great crowd here turning out on a Sunday afternoon in Porto Cristo to watch the very best go at it. And I'm just enjoying watching Ben Canute just muscle his way around this course behind Henry Schoeman. Such a gutsy racer. Martin Van Riel behind him from Murray and Berger.
Yeah, Ben Canute does a fantastic job at clawing his way to fifth place every time. You know, really fantastic racing, making the most of everything he's got in terms of his, you know, triathlon tactics and technical and physical ability. It's good to see. I wouldn't expect anyone to have taken that short shoot on that first leg. It would have been a big risk. You know, you could have then been out front and you would have effectively had to do the whole race yourself. For Johnny, you know, he would have known he could have taken it and hit the swim with whatever, you know, a 10-second lead or 15-second lead very optimistically, but they were still probably going to catch him by the end of the swim. So I think he probably needs to save that until the real racing is kicking off, you know, on that final run.
Tommy Zafiris having a tough day now. He's in 9th position ahead of Igor Polyansky, who is 35 seconds behind now and may find himself eliminated by the 90-second rule if the pace keeps as hot as it is at the front. The pink jersey of Vincent Louis, championship leader, the red of Johnny. Who...
Well, look, there's a big split there. That's, so Vincent actually looked over his left shoulder to see where Henry was. He obviously sensed he was struggling a little bit. They spent that much time racing together that he could feel that. And he came round Johnny to push the pace on. Richard Murray was having to move past the other athletes to get himself back in contact with these leading 2 or 3. And that all of a sudden is a big gap back to the Ben Canute and Martin Van Riel back there, and they're going to do, and Leo Berger behind those guys, so they're going to do everything they can to stay in contact now going into this swim. And as is Richard Murray, you know, he does not want that 1 or 2 metre gap to open. I think Henry is quite confidently saying, I can afford here, you know, I'm trying to get through this whole race as easily as I can until it really matters in that final run. I can afford to let these guys have a couple of seconds and then make it up in the first bit of the swim rather than gassing myself going out on the back part of the run.
Vincent Louis heads through transition. He's got the swim cap on. So does Johnny Brownlee, who throws his shoes in the box and takes off, and he'll lead out of transition. And Henry Schoeman had a quick one to the top 4, all split leaders, and our championship leader, and a nice gap to Leo Berger, Ben Canute as well, and Martin Van Riel.
I think we're starting to see everyone's transitions become a bit more consistent.
They really are.
You know, they seem to go in and out of transition in the same order now, which if we
working
go back,
Super League out, I suppose.
Yeah, if we go, absolutely. You know, a lot of these things actually, you know, some of them are more traditional transitions that they do a lot, but all of a sudden they're doing different stuff. They're going from a run to a swim, and they're doing stuff they're not normally doing.
Going very wide.
To go wide there to potentially get a bit of a jump on Johnny. They've all gone for a different line there.
4 different lines to the boy.
With Richard Murray right in the middle of them all. So, now we finally get to see potentially what the best line, But Vincent...
Well, it looks like Vincent's picked the right one at this point, or maybe he's just a little bit quicker over the first 50 to 60 metres than Henry Schoeman, who has pretty much led every swim across the course of
so
the
Johnny's
whole series.
seen the danger there and is swimming straight across onto Henry Schoeman's feet. And Schoeman's going straight onto Vincent's feet. So this is probably kind of what we'd expect in this swim, for it to line out and these guys to be pushing the pace. We've got to see now, as we pan back, has Richard Murray made the back of this leading trio? Because
he's just off the back there.
Just about off the back.
He's close. He's very close. And the others have brought up too.
Or Canute. So either Canute or Berger that went in 4th or 5th and swam up onto his feet. And I think Vincent will put the boot in a little bit now. He saw that there was a group of 4. Richard Murray could be a danger man if he sets the pace. I think he knows Johnny and Henry will come with him, and
that gap's gone.
It's starting to go.
And to be honest, there's a bit of a gap between
Johnny and Richard.
Louis to Schoeman. So he's not right on those feet, although he is now going around the buoy. But I think that probably we're just seeing that Vincent is really pushing this pace on. That's actually Martin Van Riel that's come round Richard Murray there to try and fill in the gap and to try and make it, and he has. So that's a really good bit of swimming from who I think is Martin Van Riel there in 4th place to get himself round Richard Murray, spot the danger and get on the back of these leading 3.
The pace very much on. If it's not being pushed by Vincent Louis, it's being pushed by somebody else, and they're all in a straight line at this point, which just shows you that there's nothing left in the tank. There's no conservation. There's no racing tomorrow. There's no extra sprint triathlon after this one. It is just a swim, bike, run to victory. And right now, Vincent Louis is looking to take the maximum amount of championship points. He did that in Jersey. He did that in Malta. He's had 50 coming into this out of a possible 50. And he's looking to add another 25 to that. He came second yesterday.
So behind Van Riel, I think that is Ben Canute there desperately scrambling to actually get on Van Riel's feet. And behind him, we're seeing Richard Murray actually go backwards, and Berger, I think it's Berger trying to get round him to get on the back of this group as Murray kind of goes back through the field. Yeah, that's Van Riel coming out there. Yep. Ben Canute stumbling slightly, which is not what he needs at this point. Henry Schumann is having a little look behind to see what's going on. Yeah, so that's Berger and Murray. Murray's gone back from 3rd or 4th place on the swim back there to 7th place. And yeah, I mean, yeah, wow, those guys are distanced now, and that's opened up. Henry Schumann's moving round. It looks like moving round Vincent here. Maybe he feels like it's time now to push the pace on and use his fantastic swimming ability to do that. And that's Johnny just sat.
Johnny's in a great spot.
Yeah, this is the spot you want when you
exactly
swim. Between two guys in front of you, you're basically doing probably 10% less work than the people in front.
For those maybe thinking that, and we've seen Henry Schumann take the option of just sitting on Vince Louis' feet before, but we know the kick that Vincent Louis has, and if it comes down to a running race between the two of them, it's happened twice already that Henry Schumann has seen him disappear into the distance. And if it finishes Vincent Louis first, Henry Schumann second, they'll both end up on 46 points. But because Vincent Louis wins Sunday racing, he wins the overall today, and he takes the championship points. And Henry Schumann cannot afford to allow that to happen.
And he's got the short.
And he's got the short shoot along with Johnny Brownlee, who are both in this group. So the two gentlemen, one being Henry, is that Martin Van Riel on the back?
Yeah, the back. Yeah.
Both have the disadvantage of having to know they have to run further. Be it only 10 metres, it's still significant.
It's a big mental block, isn't it, knowing that these guys are going to have to run 10 metres shorter.
Yeah. And Henry knows that actually with or without the short shoot, he needs to do something special here, not only to beat Vincent, and hopefully put someone between him and Vincent if he wants to win this overall.
Agreed.
I don't know if he's thinking like that or if he's thinking that's probably impossible here. You know, let's just hold on and make sure I come, you know, try and win this or for its own good, or just come second or third and consolidate. Who knows? But yeah, I think he would need to do something really special to put the odds in the favour of him winning the overall weekend.
Surely he's not thinking about anything except for I have to go as fast as I can and hope for the best.
Well, that's part of Super League, isn't it? Thinking on the run, or the swim, or the bike, as it were.
Touche, Brownlee.
Being clever about it and using everything you've got to your advantage. This gap behind him has just absolutely exploded on that swim. Yeah. That's
really
back to Berger, and there's Murray, who really looks like he's struggling through like that, and Ben Canute as well, who maybe the Ben Canute train has finally slowed up a bit. Yeah.
It's a group of 4 now. I think they're going to roar up this climb and put everybody else out of the equation and start looking at each other. I think Vincent's such a tactically smart racer, and geez, Johnny, you've been working on your transitions and he's been fast all day.
Maybe he's been listening to commentary.
I went for him if he has
fast all day.
You've been much nicer to him this weekend than last weekend. As Vincent Louis tries to put the shoes on, and there's not a lot of room on the flat to do that before the hill starts. And there's your two championship contenders, Henry Schumann of South Africa, Vincent Louis of France, Johnny Brownlee.
And where's Martin Van Riel?
Yeah, where's Martin Van Riel? So it's saying 3 seconds coming out. Oh, there is Ben Canute there.
I think he might have had a slip on the steps.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Either way,
he looks
tired. Yeah. Maybe he's had a bit of both, or he just fancies a little sit down.
It's been a big weekend, and it's a tough course.
Yeah, I just thought on that last bit of the swim, he's a fantastic swimmer, and his swimming stroke looked really kind of uncomfortable, like he wasn't enjoying it. So I just wondered if it's all taken its toll on him at last. Martin Van Riel's just ridden himself up to the back of that group, so there is a group of 4 with these two guys chasing behind. I think, you know, these guys are going to push it on here, and those two guys behind in Berger and Murray are fantastic riders, so if anyone can ride themselves back into contact, it probably is those two. But yeah, they've got a tall order. Van Riel really low on the bars there, just saving the energy and being as aerodynamic as he can to get back in touch with his group. And yeah, this is Vincent Louis back on the front. you can't say he doesn't deserve to win these races, does he? He spends more time at the front of them than anyone.
And he really applies the pressure when he needs to, and he puts everybody on the back foot. I think this is your strong established group before. There's no one else going to come through. Leo Bergier back in 5th position, but I think these guys are going to stay away. Vincent will make sure that's the case, and with the short shoot with him and Johnny, it'll be two gentlemen looking at each other with both Henry Schumann and Martin Van Riel.
Another one.
I love him. I think he's magnificent. I think he's a real aggressive little racer. Wow.
Winston Churchill and the Martin Unreal.
Little gap there.
A race in 4 at this point. I wonder if they do. I mean, in the women's race, we saw Kirsten Casper take the short shoot on the first lap of the run. She paid for it in the end. Taylor Spivey keeping it in the pocket and coming out about 8 metres in front. Do we see a situation there, the men having looked at that and gone, well, we're both going to take it in lap 2 and which is going to be a straight shootout, or is there any kind of tactical advantage at all in taking it first?
Yeah, I think it probably depends where you are in the race, doesn't it? If you're a little bit behind and, all of a sudden that puts you in front and puts the pressure on that way, maybe, I think you could argue it every way for every position. And is that athlete a front runner? Are they a chaser? Some people are really good at pushing themselves and applying themselves when they've basically got a pair of heels to follow. Some people are great at pushing themselves when they're out front and they've got that confidence. And I think it's probably knowing who you are like that and making that decision on that front. I think the probably safe thing to do, and I think what will happen is they'll both take it on the last lap.
Yep.
Because they'll be looking at each other and then it'll happen.
I spoke with Kirsten Casper and asked her that, what made you take that choice? She said she had a really, really bad transition. You remember, her bike fell over. She was losing some time and figured, I'm going to take it, maybe Taylor will crack, and that wasn't the case. So Taylor obviously made the short shoot with a lap to go and went on to capitalise and win the event. The one thing I will say is Johnny Brownlee has really good legs today. He's going from front to the back of this course. He seems to be checking Vincent Louis a lot. He's looking around. He seems a lot more comfortable than I have seen him in, especially last week in Malta. And I think yesterday he looked great. He was just shut out by the short shoot. So with the short shoot and play for him, I'd love to see him tactically use it very, very well to his advantage.
I think to beat Vincent, though, he probably, he needs to make some kind of move, probably. Maybe not a move to get off the front on the bike, but, he just needs to mix the race up again, make it a bit difficult, make it uncomfortable, because at the moment, Vincent's controlling this race. He's doing it, racing exactly as he wants to race. He does this technical bit every time, pushes it around the corners, pushes it up the hill, pushes it out of that downhill, waits for it to sit up on this bit, and then so he can kind of cruise up this tough hill. Gets his breath back and does it all again. So this race is basically on Vincent Louis' terms.
Do you run off the shoulder?
So easy.
Yeah, do you run off the shoulder of Vincent Louis with a lap to go and then put him in front, make sure hope he doesn't take the short shoot on the first lap, and then duck through and put him on the back foot? Johnny likes to run a long way from home and at least have a crack a long way out. Vincent tends to get a lot stronger as he gets closer to home, but with that 5-second advantage, it could be the deciding factor.
We have confirmation that Ben Canute, we saw him on the steps lying down, is in fact okay. He had a hip spasm coming out of the water and decided that it was too hard to go on. But he is all right, and he will live to fight another day, which is good to hear. He really races with his heart on his sleeve, Ben Canute, and it's unfortunate to see him not finish this incredible sprint enduro, but it is also fantastic to watch these men battle it out. And in fact, Richard Murray and Leo Bergier have narrowed that gap.
Leo
by about
Bergier's
7 seconds on that lap.
Leo Bergier has been on the front of that. Richard Murray's been stuck to his wheel pretty much for the entire 2 laps that we've done. He's just been magnificent up that climb, Leo. He rides so well and he uses his descent. If you look at Martin Van Riel, all of them actually tucked down like that. Leo
every time Vincent puts a really low tuck on and just uses it to get himself back into the front of the race. We're seeing Ben Canute here being led off the course.
Does look a little bit tender from that hip, and that is Brad Beer, the physio that travels with us from Super League, marshalling him through the course as Henry Schumann finds himself for the first time, you're right, at the front of this race. He had a mortgage on the front of the race yesterday, but today it hasn't been all his way, and these two are trying desperately to work together to come back, and Richard Murray will be confident that he can put a good run in, but whether it'll be enough, we'll have to wait and see.
There are a couple of guys still in the race off the back of these guys that we're not talking about so much. We're seeing Hayden Wild battling strong. He's actually still only 31 seconds down, so a really good job there. And Zafira is at 45 seconds down. So, yeah, these guys, there he is, Hayden Wild, just making up the hill. He's in a race of his own here just to hang on and do everything he can to keep himself in the race. So they're going on to the last lap now on the bike. Last time up this hill. and Henry's actually leading them in fast. So this would be a really good time. Wait for it to slow up. Wait for it to sit up any minute now, and then someone have a go. And not do what Johnny's doing, which is just go to the front and move the pace on without actually doing anything aggressive.
There'll be some very happy gentlemen when they reach the top of Mount Mallorca for the very last time, for 12 months at least. This is the last time they'll head up this hill. And I'm sure they'll be happy. Hayden Wild will too once he gets up there. And it is a brutal, brutal climb at 13% gradient. Very, very tough. Bergier and Murray remain 12 seconds back on our group of 4. Van Riel, I think we're not talking about him much. He's comfortable enough to take a drink of water a couple of times. He looks comfortable back there. I wonder what he's got left in the tank behind these 3.
Yeah, I think he's doing a good tactical race. He's using the aerodynamic advantage as he can to not pedal down there. Although he is on his top tube actually using his brakes, but he might as well just sit up and stretch his back a bit. But yeah, I think he knows these guys in front of him are probably the better runners, and he's trying to save all the energy he can going into the run, which is the sensible thing to do. Will Richard Murray be able to pick any of these guys in front of him off? He's a great runner over this format, but I think he's probably had to swim and ride really hard here to keep himself in contact. So let's see what he's got left.
In terms of overall championship points, Richard Murray is currently in 3rd position after a great week out last week on 34 points. Johnny Brownlee on 28 points, so he'll know that there's some value there in trying to run Johnny Brownlee down. Vincent Louis on 50 and Henry Schoeman on 42.
But Murray had a terrible day yesterday. So
he did.
Yeah,
he's a long way down the standing.
He doesn't seem to have the run legs this weekend and bounce back from Malta as they come into transition.
This transition's crucial.
It really is.
I actually saw quite a few of them have left their trainers outside the box, and some of them have put trainers inside the box or have got 2 pairs of trainers. So I think that's what Johnny's done. He's actually got 2 pairs of trainers with him, so he can afford. This transition's really crucial for them. And now Vincent's out first, Henry's last.
Henry was a little slow there compared to the others. I don't know whether he was slow or the others were just lightning quick. Murray, who's a great transitioner.
Henry's moved
That's
up.
a word.
Henry's moved up but doesn't have the short shoot. The 2 gentlemen on screen, Vincent Louis and Jonathan Brownlee, have the advantage of being able to take a shortcut, a 10-metre advantage on this run. When they use it is up to them. It'll be interesting to see. Henry knows that. He'd be thinking about that, and
he needs to make a move.
He needs to make a move.
Absolutely does. Henry Schoeman, and he moves to the front, and now he's going to start to try and push the pace. Henry Schoeman. I don't know whether Martin Van Riel has got anything left in him. And again, these 3 were at the front on the run home yesterday in the triple mix. They're on the front in the run home today in the sprint enduro. Henry Schoeman needs to finish in 1st position if Vincent Louis finishes 2nd. Otherwise, now Louis responds, but if Louis finishes first, they're going to end up on equal points, and Vincent Louis will take the overall. Here are last men through transition, Tommy Zafiris and Igor Polyansky. I think Martin Van Riel's day is over in terms of the podium at least.
Johnny's moved around.
He's got to try and hold off Murray coming from behind him.
Yeah,
I think Schoeman put a big effort in there. That was his effort, and also I think we're seeing he doesn't like running downhill too much, so he tends to move backwards a bit on the downhill, whereas Vincent Louis and Johnny run downhill that bit faster.
Does Johnny take it now? Does Johnny take a little advantage, put Henry at surprise?
I don't think he's really to do it.
Yeah,
he's not willing to do it.
Oh, yes,
he's going to do
good
it.
move, smart move.
I don't know, is it going to pay off?
He's going to commit
Brownlee
now.
has taken the short shoot.
Taken the shoot.
Now it's time to put the hammer down.
He absolutely has to commit. I mean, I'm not convinced it's going to pay off, but I just think it's fantastic to see he's taken the risk and he's going for it. But he absolutely has to 1,000% commit now.
We've lost Will. Will's gone to watch the race.
Yeah, and this is Vincent Louis obviously running as hard as he can, and Henry Schoeman on his heels.
I don't know if Schoeman's got anything left there.
No, I think
Johnny's committed.
And that's his move. He has to give everything he's got here. He has to give 100% out of every single corner, because work the downhills. He needs to. We saw him not doing that in Malta, not committing to the downhills, not leaning forward. At least he's leaning forward, and you can see he's turning in his arms over here, which is great to see. But obviously,
if Johnny Brownlee wins this race, he wins the overall round.
He wins the overall round. And he's got a gap here. He's got a gap. You know that Vincent Louis will move up. He finishes very, very quickly. He has the short shoot, which is a 5-second advantage. Johnny has to work this next hill. This is the most important uphill section for Johnny Brownlee of the race.
Yeah, I think Vincent Louis coming hard though. He looks like he's in control here, and he's running well, and he's giving it everything. So I think, unfortunately, it might have a couple of meters coming out that short shoot when he gets to take it. But it's made the racing really interesting, hasn't it? There's no doubt about that, and it's hard to tell from this camera angle as it shortens it down the hill as well.
He's looked across, you see the glance, he took a breath, he's going to commit to this downhill like we saw in Malta, he's going to let the legs roll, but Johnny's on.
Come on, Johnny.
Come on, Johnny.
Great Britain is saying, come on, Johnny. The French are saying, come on, Vince Louis, make it 3 from 3.
The gap is big. The gap is big.
Is it big enough? We're going to see an elimination for, I think, Igor Polyansky has been showing the yellow flag, so
He's
the
under
Russian
pressure.
day is
Vincent
over.
Louis not doing this
Let's go
easy.
back to that, see that short shoot. Here we go. Johnny comes to the top of the course.
You've got to remember
Vincent Louis is going to turn now.
Left after this, and it's close.
It's going to be close. He's going to accelerate onto him, but Vincent Louis is in front.
It's going to be close. There's still 400 metres to go. There's this bit of downhill, and then a kind of long, slightly uphill drag into the finish. But yeah,
Who's got more?
Vincent's hard to get, but Johnny is not giving up here.
Johnny's
No,
not
he's
giving
not.
up. He's coming hard on this downhill. He's coming really hard. He's doing all he can to get back in touch. I mean, he knows this is a big ask to out sprint or out kick Vincent Louis over the last 400 metres, but he's giving it all he's got to get himself back in contact. I think
Great weekend's racing from Johnny
If
Brownlee.
Vincent makes, he's made that turn now with a bit of a gap, and he knows he's got it.
He's got it.
He used all the road he's got there. Fantastic racer.
Great racing. Takes time to look at the camera on the back of the motorbike, and Vincent Louis is going to make it a perfect 3 from 3. He won in Jersey, he won in Malta, and now Vincent Louis wins in Mallorca. Congratulations to the Frenchman. He is a class above. Johnny Brownlee gave
Well
it
done, Johnny
absolutely
Brownlee.
everything as well. Henry Schumann will finish in 3rd position, but what racing that was. Heart on the sleeve racing from Johnny Brownlee, and a great response from Vincent Louis. Henry Schumann finishes in 3rd to add to his first yesterday. And Martin Van Riel holds off Richard Murray for 4th place, 5th place for Murray, but what racing that was.
Absolutely fantastic.
Brilliant.
And so for the weekend, that means Vincent Louis has won again,
He's
Henry
won it.
Schumann in 2nd, and Johnny in 3rd, I think, from my quick mental maths there.
You can do it in your head. I have to write it down. You went to Cambridge. I did not go to Cambridge.
And Richard Murray, Leo Berger, when we're just seeing Hayden Wilder, is he going to make it in before the 90 seconds? I mean, not that it really matters now anyway, but...
And he didn't fasten that helmet up. I wonder if the officials picked that up, if that's a DQ or a penalty. I'm not sure what the rules
Normally,
are there.
if you can redo it before the mount line, you haven't impeded anyone or gotten in anyone's way, and they kind of look kindly on it, I think.
Okay.
There's not much more you can ask from a day's racing than that. What a fantastic
brilliant.
finish that was. And Tommy Zafiris manages to easily avoid elimination in the end. Great racing from him as well. He's a fantastic swimmer, and he's held on with only a few days' notice. And Hayden Wild makes it home as well. Tough day out for him. He's had a couple of injuries, but he has firmly announced himself on the Super League scene. Great crowd coming out and lining every inch of this course to watch some absolutely world-class racing here on the streets of Porto Cristo. Not a seat in the house. They're hanging out of every balcony as well. Never been so many people in Burger King. And Tommy Zafiris crosses the black carpet finishing line. Congratulations to him. Brilliant racing and another brilliant round of Super League. That was brilliant racing.
That was awesome. That was so awesome. I really impressed with Johnny to be committing so far out for that race.
We're going to show the closing stages again, and that was the short shoot take from Vincent Louis. There was about maybe 5 metres between them, and it slowly extended, but you could see that, I mean, you know when Johnny's running hard, and that was as hard as it gets.
Yeah, he was running as hard as he was good to see in there, take the risk and then commit to it early on. That's a Johnny we haven't seen racing for a while, and he was committing everything he's got down the downhill to get back on Vincent, even though he knew it was going to be a big ask, even if he made it onto that shoulder. So that was good, and the short shoot did actually make for exciting racing today. I've been a bit sceptical of it sometimes in the past, but it really made the racing today, I think.
Yeah, we're refining the short shoot as we go along, but we got it absolutely spot on today, I think. And Vincent Louis is enjoying his Super League journey. There is no doubt about it whatsoever. He's great at the short stuff. He's great at French Grand Prix racing, and he is great at Super League Triathlon. has won every round. Vincent Louis, Johnny Brownlee helps out his overall championship with a third place today overall. But how good was Vincent Louis? Here are the official results. 8 men made it home. Hayden Wild, we have been given the conversation, will be disqualified for not doing his helmet strap up. So Tommy Zafiris will move into 7th position.
He mounted his bike and then did his helmet strap up, which is
a DQ.
Yeah, which is a really bad thing to do. You know, if you can do it up before you mount your bike, that's a completely different story.
They tend to look at it a little bit more lightly, but I think that was after a poor swim. You jump on the bike, you panic a little bit, throw the helmet on and clip it up. It's
a learning experience for the 21-year-old, no doubt. Vincent Louis wins it in a 36.02. That is fast from Johnny Brownlee, Henry Schoeman, Martin Van Riel, and Richard Murray is your top 5 from Leo Bergier, Tommy Zafiris, Hayden Wild disqualified. So 7 men to finish that race. Time to head down now to Annie with our winner.
When we start, I was like, okay.
Johnny, one better than yesterday. That short shoot there. What was your decision to take it when you did?
Well, I know that I've had some great battles with Vince for the last, probably 15 years now. And that was one of the best battles I've ever had. I knew the only card I had to play was to take the short shoot early, get a gap, and hopefully I'd give absolute full gas and I could pull out a 2 or 3 second lead and it wouldn't come down to a sprint finish, because this guy's very hard to beat on the sprint finish. But I really enjoyed that battle today.
Congratulations, Vincent, the winner here today. You go from strength to strength. That short shoot, though, I think played a big part, didn't it, in the overall victory in the end?
Yeah. That's why I wanted to win this morning. Wanted to win the heat. Not only for the psychological influence, but more for taking the short shoot. And when I knew Johnny had the short shoot too, I was like, okay, he's a true racer and a great racer, so we'll play a fair game together on the final.
Johnny, great to see you back on the podium. We know you've had a tough year, but 3rd yesterday, 1 better today. I guess that's feeling pretty good now.
Yeah, it's probably been my worst year in my whole career, but it's nice to finish it in style and finish on the podium, but more importantly finish it feeling good and enjoying a good race. So that's why I do the training, that's why I'm here to race, just have battles like that. That's why I do the sport, so I really enjoyed it today.
Vincent, this style of racing is something pretty special, and I think it's given so much excitement to the crowds. But what do you think of it as an athlete?
Yeah, that's my first year racing the Super League, and I only heard good things about that. So I was like, okay, I want to race next year. And yeah, I got my spot, and I tried to bring some more French with me because I know it will be like a great race. But yeah, it is, and it's tough, but it's really great to race. And with guys like Johnny and Henry making the race really interesting, it's even more great to win.
Great stuff. Congratulations, guys.
Thank you. Well,
fantastic racing from Johnny Brownlee, Vincent Louis, and all of our Super League athletes. And there is Hayden Wild, who went through a lot of pain today and is rewarded via a small mistake with a DQ, which obviously is, well, he fell afoul of the rules, and that's what happens to the very, very best of them. But a learning experience for Hayden Wild, and as we look back at that race, and a great start from Igor Polyansky and Zafiris in the middle, but Polyansky took control along with Zafiris, Van Riel, Louis. There was a bit of a trip from the Russian, but it wasn't too long before Ben Canute dragged a whole bunch with him. Unfortunately, we wouldn't see Ben Canute all the way through the race. He pulled out with a hip spasm. We'll see that in just a second. But solid transition. That's just about where Ali Brownlee gave his brother a backhanded compliment about his great transition. We all enjoyed that. Back into the water for the second time around, and very, very different decisions. We've seen that across the course of the weekend about which line to take, and I don't know if there's a clear winner at this point.
No, it seems not, although Vincent did get to that first buoy first before Johnny and Henry, although he's probably just swimming a bit faster. So, yeah, I think we could argue that one literally forevermore. We'll never know.
Yeah, let's not. I'll lose that argument in the end. And there we go. Johnny took the short shoot first. As he said in the interview, he played his card and he wanted to arrive in 1 lap's time right back here with a couple of seconds gap, which he did, but unfortunately he was on the wrong end of that gap because Vincent Louis took it the second time around and just managed to come out in front of Brownlee. And we know he's got the very best kick over the last 300 metres or so in triathlon, and he showed that again today. Vincent Louis He's won in Jersey, in Malta, and now in Mallorca in front of a fantastic crowd. And that was simply spectacular racing from some of the best in the world.